Hi, and welcome to the support series videos from Vectra. In this series, engineers will go through some of the common requests we see from customers and how to resolve them. Please be sure to subscribe and check back for new videos in the series.
Welcome all who are watching this video from the Vectra's support series. I'm Mohammed Pasha from Vectra support team, and today we'll walk through on how to debug network connectivity to various network endpoints from the Vectra brain. In order to do this, we will use the CLI of the Vectra brain, and you can log into the CLI via the console or while connected over SSH as Vectra user. Uh, why do you want to debug a connectivity, right? So typically it can be as part of a setup or a troubleshooting that you may want to know if the brain or sensor appliance is able to reach a certain network endpoint. This could also be um, a check to verify if the network settings on the appliance are correct, and if you can successfully traverse a firewall or a proxy server. Now, typically, you can test the connectivity in three different ways, using one, a TCP connection test, two, the good old the ping, and three, the trace route. Now, so once you log in, so you would go ahead and land on the CLI page. Now, what you can do is you can do a simple help and enter right. So once you enter help command, you would see the list of available categories of the command, and so you can see there is something like a show category, right, wherein you can use the show commands to see the outputs. And there is, again, if you look at, there is a category of command on performing a backup. There's a category of command that allows you to do a restore. You can even generate the status report of the system. So, and today what we will cover is the debug category of command. So the debug category allows us to test the connectivity, right? Now, so what we can do is we can do a simple debug and use -h to see what are the options and how do we define the command, right? So if you see a debug command, you can use a debug followed by the options and then the command that you would want to use, and then the arguments, right, which are needed in order for you to test a connectivity. Now, as I said before, so we can do the connectivity test using one. So the first option is connectivity, which is typically a test of TCP connectivity. Nothing but a TCP three-way handshake is performed to an endpoint. And the second one is you can do a simple ping to the endpoint, and then the third one is wire traceroute. Now, of course, for ping and traceroute, ICMP needs to be enabled on your network in order for these commands to work. Now let's look at one by one these commands and explore these commands to see how we can use them to test connectivity to the various endpoints, right? Now let's start off with the first debug command, right? So that is connectivity using the TCP test. Now, to what you can do is you can do a simple debug connectivity, and then you can hit an -h to see the listing, right? So here the usage and what are the options that are available for us to perform this, right? And if you see the usage is typically debug connectivity and then one of these options, right? And then followed by the host and port name, port number. So the host can be an FQDN or an IP address. So and then the port is, of course, right? So if you want to connect to, let's say, an SSL, the TCP 443 port, right? So you can simply go ahead and specify that particular port in order to test that. Now, let's just do a quick test. So on one of the endpoints that Vectra uses for its brain, right, to talk to do the connectivity check. So what I can do is I can do a debug connectivity, and then this is one of the endpoints, right? So I have mentioned the FQDN out here, and then I can simply say the port number 443. Now what happens is, if you see that it gives a connectivity as success, and it has a couple of other things where it says proxy false and SSL false. We'll look at these two options in short while. So but yeah, so if you see the connectivity as success, and then so you know that there is a TCP three-way handshake on port 443 that has completed without any issues. If you see a fail, then obviously so that particular segment, or I mean that particular connectivity to the network endpoint is not available, right? So typically, so this is how a simple a debug connectivity for TCP would look for an network endpoint. Now what we can do is, so if you see there are further furthermore there are options that are available for you to do a couple of things, right? So one is you have an option called as, so let's say in your environment, if you are using a proxy, and what you can do is you can use the option of either bypassing the proxy, or you can say that have the default behavior where what you say is you can basically enforce a don't bypass proxy parameter, right? Or you can use bypass proxy to verify the direct connectivity to the network endpoint, bypassing the proxy using this particular parameter. So all you got to do for that is, so I'm going to hit an up arrow, right? And if you can see, so I have debug connectivity and then this, and all I have to do is, just as the instruction says, I can say bypass proxy here. Now again, now so if you see that now it has it bypasses the proxy if it is, of course, if it is configured, or if a proxy is available, right? So it bypasses that and tries a direct connection. And if I want to force that, right, so force through the proxy, so what I can do is I can say, of course, don't do a bypass proxy, right? And typically so we have got an error here. So yeah, so if you see that I've just entered a couple of hyphens more, because of which it gives syntax error there. So let me remove that. And again, right, so I can do the same thing. And then the third option is using so this is using SSL. I mean, basically what you're doing is validating for an SSL connection. So what you can do is you can enforce the SSL check in your connection test by supplying the hyphen SSL parameter. If you and let's do that. So all you got to do is, so and the minute that I did that, right, so you can see the output, or how the output is different from all the previous outputs where I didn't mention the use case of SSL. So right now it's attempting via the SSL, right? So so pretty much, so there is again, yeah, sorry. So there's again a timeout command, right? So basically, if you see that, it just says, you can configure a number of seconds to attempt a connection to a host and proxy. Of course, if configured, and for example, by default, it allows for you to attempt for 5 seconds, post which the connection will be dropped. So these are some of the options available as part of the debug connectivity, which is nothing but, again, it's a TCP connectivity test that we have performed. Now let's look at the next command, next debug command that is available for us for troubleshooting, right? So we can do let's do the ping, right? Now again, what I can do is I can do a simple debug ping and hyphen h for the option. And if you look at the usage, so here it is debug ping, and then you can mention any of these options, and then the destination. Now again, the destination, right? So you can have a FQDN for that destination, or you can have the IP address. So let's see. I mean, if you look at the options, again, you have various options, right? So hyphen C for count, so you can mention the number of pings to be sent to the destination, and then you can also enforce what is the interval between individual pings to that particular endpoint. Now if you can see that, you can see that we are able to ping that endpoint, right? So this defaults to five packets being transmitted, five is received, so 0% packet loss. And of course, one of the most important component for either of this ping or traceroute command to be done is ICMP needs to be enabled in your environment in order for this to work. And if it is not, then I think you can rely on the previous test where we used the TCP connectivity test to test the network connectivity to the network endpoint. So let me go ahead and do the same thing with traceroute. So let's do a debug traceroute -h. If I can spell it out right. Okay. Yeah. So again, right. So with traceroute, you got various options here. So there are a lot of options available. I'm not going to go into the details of these. I mean, most of them are pretty straightforward, like any other trace routes. And so basically, you have got various options that you can use to do trace route here. Now, let's look at how a typical trace route would look, right? So you can do a simple debug trace route. Yeah, I mean it's just one hop away because yeah. So yeah, I mean in the end it gives you the result as well. So whether the trace route was successful or in case if it stopped or dropped, right? And pretty much, yeah. So pretty much this is what I had um as part of covering this particular short series from support on how to debug connectivity to endpoints, right? I mean you can typically use this to not only just uh, to verify connectivity to, let's say, vector endpoints, right? So or the sensors, right, that talk to the brain. You can also use it to test it to any network endpoint within your environment. And I mean, just as you could see that I was able to do that with google.com, right? So you could use that to verify the connectivity from the brain to any network endpoint, right? So yeah. So also let me quickly share an article here, right? So I'll just share the article and we'll hopefully we'll attach. So we also have an article available to check the network connectivity from the brain, which will attach in the description of the video, and also the firewall requirements for vector appliance, right? So what are the typical firewall vector requirements? And so what I'll do is let me share that one. So I'm gonna stop sharing the screen for a minute. Have an article on firewall requirements for vector appliances. So typically, if you look at this, so we actually uh, it just start off with an important note here, which talks about what are the uh, typically it states that SSL inspection needs to be disabled, right? So that's the primary criteria. But then if you scroll through this article, so it talks about the required connectivity, right? And if you look at it, what are the ports that are supposed to be open, right? So if you look at here, so we just tested the connectivity for update 2, right? And so if you see from brain, so we need to have a 443 connectivity, right, enabled to this endpoint, which is update to network update to vectornetworks.com. Now basically that's is used for performing automatic updates, pairing keys for physical sensors, right? So and then again from brain, so there's another endpoint called API vectornetworks.com, again 443, right? So this is used for health monitoring and algorithm supports, reverse lookup, right, etc. So again so there's one more called rp.vector networks. So this is basically used only for brains deployed in clouds, right? So this is not for the physical brain, I mean, yeah. So this is not a required criteria for physical brains, but it is required for brains deployed in the IIS clouds. And now similarly you can look at the this particular article, right? Again I'll try to make sure that we'll attach this article as well, and basically you would know what what are the various um, ports and endpoints that we Vectra needs connectivity to, Vectra Brain needs connectivity to, and then if there are any additional features that you have, additional features from Vectra that you are using, then what are the other additional endpoints and their respective ports that needs connection to. And so that's it from my end on this video. I hope this video has been informative, and all the best. Thank you.